There are some corners of the universe that have bred the most terrible things. Things that stand against everything I rule. They must be controlled. Free will and the ability to travel through time are two of the many things that break this new order. I am the Emperor, ruler of the known universe, and soon to be what remains of the multiverse. I go by many names. The Destroyer of Worlds, the Sandman, the Warrior, the End of Days, the Shadow, or the Valiant. All very pretty, I'm sure, but my previous and arguably well-known title was the Doctor. After the destruction of my homeworld leaving me as the remaining survivor, I decided to take responsibility and become the man you see before you. The Doctor, he's no more, and only the Emperor remains. They were always going to be one and the same. Inevitable. But if there is one rule that I still stand by, is that we should preserve stories. Tend to legends. Here is my legend. A story of war, death, love, family, chaos, and order. For they are no more. Entropy is the only way forward. That's enough for grandeur. I could delve into my many beginnings as the Doctor, the House of Longbarrow, and being one of the founders of Gallifrey. Time travel with my mother without even knowing it. Being tested on as a child, and being raised by a Shibogan named Tecteun. But you will not hear about that. Soon you shall be told these stories, but this is my story. But I would say my true beginning was when I became who I was destined to be. When Gallifrey was gone, nothing remained but a barren wasteland with no life in sight. The war made sure of that. The war was so complex that primitive life forms such as yourself wouldn't even understand it. No, genuinely, your brain could not fathom it. That much is clear even by the name you gave it. A war in heaven. But every life form with an ounce of intelligence simply labeled it the war. It was a temporal conflict between the Time Lords and the enemy. But if I were to go further into detail, if you knew who the enemy was, your mind may well explode. And I'm not one to exaggerate. I don't need to. After the war, I ruled over this small, ignorant little universe. And that reign lasted for 1,000 years. They were good years. In that time, I enforced strict restrictions on time travel, but also limitations through space. All the little children stayed in their little corners. After that came the police force, so no rebellion could come from my head. And there within is the true beauty of time travel, stopping resistance before it starts. It was my duty. It was my right. Some may say I went too far. Some would say what I am now is what I would fight against when I was the Doctor. But you don't know the naivety in that head. I've felt it, and I know it. So I know it to be wrong. The Doctor disrupted the natural order, the rules put in place to ensure obedience and natural selection. when really that moral high ground could have been preserving that order. Rule or be ruled. My old friend the Master claimed to understand what the universe was. And now he's no longer here. I can only wonder what sort of conversations we would have had in the quiet hours, where we showed each other our true hands. He was telling the truth all along, and I was just too late. But he was also, lest we forget, an amateur. The universe is nothing but obedient and chaos. Infinite chaos that needs to be controlled. Of course, I remember being compassionate, traversing the universe with ease, but the shortcut, the answer, was right at my feet all along, ruling order through fear and fear through order, because somebody has to. And on my path here, I am glad I stopped so many despots, foiled the plans of would-be kings, because they did not have the vision required for the role. And now I sit in my kingdom, the Needle. It was old and falling apart, but a fitting palace for my throne. Where else would I place it? It was here, in this seat, that I began my plan. Here that I witnessed the birth of my daughter, my assassination, and her death. It was the night of her birth that was the day of my death. My supposed death. Everything I worked towards and created was falling apart. The chaos was compared to that of the war. If only assassinating me was that easy. If only I could let go of the burden that is my life. But after my assassination, I was forced back into existence. I didn't understand why at the time. It was here that I formulated a plan to save my daughter. She was taken, left in the 1980s for her own protection, but it was unsuccessful, so I decided to reclaim my power, but this time on a much bigger scale. And there were plans. Become one of the 4 remaining elementals. If only they knew how that one ended. But it was on the day I witnessed the death of my now fully grown daughter that I realized, no matter quite how immortal I am, this universe offers nothing but pain and destruction. Omega got it right in the very beginning. Miranda went back in time to sacrifice herself for one of my younger incarnations, the one who adopted her from the 80s. The long-haired one in the frock coat, the one that she must have seen as a father. Do I hold a grudge? Of course I hold a grudge. I'll happily witness him die 1 billion times. And my 8th incarnation has died 1 billion times. My daughter became the Empress of the Universe, and I often meet her in secret, mostly when she was younger. She didn't know who I was, so I took her to my family tree. When I did, it felt as if I were the Doctor again. Naive and hopeful. Stupid, in other words. It took her death for me to finally begin working with the Daleks, gaining a knowledge of the multiverse. The bigger picture. If I couldn't have the universe, then I would set my ambitions on a level higher than any one being could fathom, to ascend beyond the multiverse itself and create a new one in my image. One without a doctor, or the inevitable creation of myself. It was in this time that I regained a physical form and was no longer a shadow of what I once was. No longer stuck in an eternal purgatory as I was forced to watch the ones I loved die. Time was of the essence. I was able to locate ancient Gallifreyan scrolls that detailed events that contradicted one another, research that delved into the concept of the multiverse, and then after a decade of looking, I found my answer. I have fond memories of traveling to East Space in my fourth incarnation alongside Romana. There was a gateway between East Space and End Space deemed Warrior's Gate. It was prophesied that there was a bigger gateway, one that could contain the void itself. But amongst the void were different universes. Every universe. Outside of this gateway was the unknown. It was told that it would lead to immense power beyond that of the ancient lights. Power of the gods. Naturally, Rassilon, being the egotistical, power-hungry imbecile he was, cranked his neck in, tried to find it, and unlike me, was unsuccessful, because he was weak. What surprised me was that the Daleks and the faction were closer to attaining this power than the Time Lords. I spent decades, dedicated my life to its existence. It was in one of their legends I found the way to reach it. Entropy. Entropy is the answer. Entropy is the only answer. Natural chaos in its purest form that could destroy the barriers between worlds, between this world and the unknown. That was my solution. I realized the only way to release this entropy was to cause as much chaos as possible, messing with time, space, and reality until they undo themselves. I started with a Dalek army, sending them to face my third incarnation. I dragged in another doctor, as a test. And then my plan was in place. I made my way to the gateway via the entropy caused by that alone, and made my way through. There, I sought counsel with the Master's daughter. Good counsel. Funny counsel. Infinitely more entertaining than Daleks. Which reminds me, I believe my little Skaro platoon failed in their so-called invasion. I must go meet them. Their ship should have destroyed the barrier completely. Entropy spilling out. But no. Oh, don't give me that look. I intend to keep the first universe, my main universe, intact. It was the spawn of this entropy. Now, I have lost my corporeal form, but I have not lost my wits. My goals. I need a vessel to unleash my true potential, to ascend beyond the gateway itself and become something new. These origins are inevitable. There will always be a universe in which the Doctor becomes me and forces me into my unwanted cage of an existence. My life is one I do not want. Everything I am is being dragged in and out of existence, and I am sick of it. The multiverse is flawed and reality is cruel, and it is now time for change. Not just for me. And that's why I will break free of these eternal chains. I will free myself from this purgatory you call an existence, and my victory will arrive. My rule will go on, but over a better universe. A more compliant universe, where I finally may rest. I am, and have always been, a complex space-time event. The other, the Timeless Children, the Doctor, the Time Lord Victorious, the Valiard, the oncoming Storm, the Curator, Merlin, Dr. Moon, Father Time, the Emperor. It is only now that I've looked into my many origins, my many futures and faces, that I truly understand what that means, and what I'm capable of, what my destiny is, and what I need to do. I will test the endgame and begin building upon the chaos that the Festival of Offerings did offer me. Perhaps I should begin my plans. That second regeneration. Let's mess with it. That's a death I have forgotten. A regeneration event with multiple counts. And of course, they all happened. But let's throw in a few added distractions to begin breaking the second barrier, for it is mine, and it will fall.